Welcome to Truth Wanted. We search for proof of gods, ghosts, aliens, or any other questionable claims, but we haven't found any of that. So, do you have the evidence we've been looking for? Well, call us because the show is going to begin right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host tonight, Objectively Dan. This is the live call-in show where we talk to people about what they believe and why. Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time every single week. You can call the show if you like. The number for that is 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/call TW. Truth Wanted is a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And of course, every single week, I always try to have a special guest with me. This week is no different. It is Apostate Ashley, everyone. Apostate Ashley, welcome to Truth Wanted.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on with us tonight, folks. I am recovering from a cold. If I sound a little sick, that's because I am. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the show tonight because Ashley's going to be here and I want to talk to Ashley. So, Ashley, again, welcome to the show. We are going to talk about you in just a second. But before we do, we have to talk about our question of the week, specifically our We Want the Truth segment. So, last week's question was, what's the best way to get out of going to church? In other words, what is the best get out of going to church lie? And we have our top 3 answers for you here. So here we go. We're going to read number 3 for you. Number 3 was James West, who said, get out of church free card. Jesus taught against religion. And that's true. I mean, he was against the Pharisees, right? And the Pharisees were all about, public spectacle and stuff. And if you think about it, going to church is a pretty public spectacle. So, there's merit to that, right, Ashley?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think that's pretty good, actually. I'm gonna keep that in my back pocket next time somebody asks me to go to church. Besides, like, I don't believe in God, but there is that. Number 2 comes from Robert English, who says, "Excuse for not going to church: the devil made me do it." Yes. And that's interesting because actually you were a former Pentecostal pastor. So I'm curious, have you ever heard people in your church ever say the devil made me do it or demons made me do it? Was that like a thing in your experience?
Not really when they were talking about themselves, more when they
Hmm.
were maybe talking about somebody else.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. I guess that makes sense. It's like I don't know what was into that person. I think they were just like possessed or something, like something like an offhand remark or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's that. So something to consider. We have our number 1 answer this week, though. This comes from Brinstar Media, who says, "Best lie to get out of church. I was in an accident because I let Jesus take the wheel." Oh no. Oh no, guys. Oh no. Man, that song is like what, 20 years old now? Older than that, right? Wait, we come out in the 90s? How old is
It's
that
pretty
song?
old. It's not the 90s, maybe the
Is it
early
early
2000s.
2000s, right? I don't know. That when that song, man, that's have you ever seen there's a great okay, this is a what do you call it? This is a Christian sort of meme, I guess you want to call it. Okay, there's this Christian pastor slash comedian who did a parody of this song called Cletus Take the Reel. And it's just about a hillbilly, you taking a fishing rod, but it's like just a parody of that song. And it's like I used to think that was the funniest thing ever. Tim Hawkins, something like that. Maybe
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
is
I
that his name?
remember
Yeah,
that guy's name, yeah.
that guy. Yeah. Anyway, that's some little that's I remember watching his comedy special on the way to church camp, like on the bus. So,
We would
takes me
play
back.
little portions of that in service sometimes as like an icebreaker.
Oh, yeah, really? His comedy.
Mhm.
Oh wow, yeah. So I guess like that's a very specific niche with Christian comedy. I'll look. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could do clean comedy for an hour and a half or whatever. I'll
Yeah,
give
I
them that.
know.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for real.
props. But anyway, so that was our we want the truth segment for last week. This week, we of course have another question for you that you guys should answer in the comments below, and you just might get your answer read next week. This week's prompt is complete the sentence. While the cause of migraines is unknown, I suspect it's blank. Okay, so a bit of a fill in the blank one this week, but before we move on, Ashley, what do you think the cause of migraines is?
Hopefully this is not too inappropriate to say, but it reminded me of I've heard that this is one way to get rid of migraines for real, but lack of orgasms.
Oh, yeah, that could be it. I might say that. I'll have to say that to my girlfriend and be like, "Hey, I'm having a migraine right now, and I think you should help me with this." That's a good call on that. I don't know. I was gonna say, I mean, yours was way more original. I was just gonna say something like, "Oh, it's like 5G radio towers, obviously sending signals to your brain." But no, I like
Oh,
yours
yeah.
better actually. Yours is funnier and more original. So good props to you on that one. So folks,
Thanks.
that's our segment this week. Please comment below and let us know what you think. Now it's time for me to talk to my guest, of course, as I mentioned before, Apostate Ashley, former pastor, Pentecostal pastor, mind you, and is
Yeah.
now a, of course, board member of the. I was about to say Freedom from Religious Organization, but it's not. You're a board member, part of the Clergy Project, actually. For those
Yes.
of you who aren't familiar, the Clergy Project is a project that specifically works in. I mean, you would be able to describe it better, but as I understand it, because we've had some guests on before who have been a part of the organization, help transition folks who are who work in not necessarily in ecclesiastical world, but maybe work in the church world somehow, and maybe don't have the applicable skills to move on somewhere else, and also don't believe anymore, and so can't, obviously keep working in the church and I don't know, be healthy with it, right? Because that obviously
Right.
a lot of cognitive distance, a lot of stuff you got to keep up with in that world. So would love for you to tell us more about that organization too. But also, I want to talk about you, Ashley, because we were having this conversation before the show. I don't know. The concept of a Pentecostal female pastor is new to me because I don't know that I've ever met one or have heard of one before you, or I mean, former in your case. But like to me, like we were talking about this before the show, but like Pentecostal tends to slant more conservative, and more conservative folks typically say, yeah, women shouldn't be in like leadership roles in the church. But you were a pastor of a Pentecostal church.
I was, but
Hmm.
also at the same time, the way that it was explained away within our denomination is the fact that we still had a covering of men above us. So I was an assistant pastor with
Hmm.
my former husband,
Hmm.
and he's still a pastor there. And then there was a lead pastor as well, who was a male. Then on top of it, we were a part of the denomination Open Bible, and that was also led by a man. So the president of
Hmm.
Open Bible was a man. So that was kind of the way that it was explained away, is that we still had to submit to a man.
So in other words, there's still somebody up further up the food chain that's a dude. So it's okay that you have some power. You just can't have all the power, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but
Well,
that's one of the things that I hear a lot is, "Well, you weren't qualified to be a pastor."
yeah, of course, right. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. But of course, we hear folks all the time who call into the show and also have been featured in this show who have either been a part of the Christian world or have served in leadership roles, myself included, by the way. But pastors, I mean, that's a big deal because you're not only in the Christian world, but you are serving others in a leadership position, right? Like you are telling other people a theology, you are helping people out sometimes when you're not qualified to with problems that maybe you shouldn't be talking about. Not saying you've ever done this before, obviously, but like marital issues, for example. Some people go to their pastors instead of counselors. Personal problems at home, things like that, where folks just aren't qualified and yet somehow find themselves in position sometimes. So like, so how? Let's talk about that story. Actually, you grew up a Christian, and you were Christian for most of your life.
Most of my life,
Mm,
yeah, I had started going to an Assemblies of God church when I was 5, and that's when it all started, and I
mm,
really got sucked in when I was 12 going to youth group.
mm,
So, it was the altar calls and all that when I was 12 years old, and I just kept going, all
mm,
throughout high school. I was very, very into it, more into it than the rest of my family was even.
mm, mm.
And then when I was 18 is I went into a program called Master's Commission. It's kind of like, it's similar to Teen Challenge, Teen
Okay.
Mania, if you've ever heard of those,
Yeah.
where it's kind of like a Christian boot camp, college missionary and training type, like a whole, basically all of that. So
Yeah.
that is where I actually got my schooling. My Bible college schooling was through that, and we traveled around like missionaries as
Mm,
well, and we had very strict rules, and I was very, very isolated from anybody with different points of view than me
mm. Which is
for a long
interesting
time.
because, like in a missionary role, right? The whole thing is you're supposed to engage with other people, and I make this comment because I did mission work as well, but you're never encouraged to like learn about other people's cultures or to like
Mm-mm.
engage with people and meet them where they're at. It's more like you need to bring Jesus to them, and like that's the goal, right? Like there's no other goal besides that, at least in my experience.
I know, I really feel like during a lot of those times, I was stuck inside the church building or
Mm,
just only with those group of people all of the time, and, within the Bible, it talks about the Great Commission going out and telling people across the world about
mm,
Jesus. Yeah, I was within those 4 walls a lot, spending
mm.
hours in prayer and worship,
Yeah, and
just in
and
my own little delusional bubble.
right, and on that note too, like, you know, some people wonder, well, why do people believe in these things, even if they're obviously silly? Because one, if you're surrounded by a group of people every day that tell you, no, no, these things are real, and you're a part of
Mhm.
this, I mean, that's going to influence your thought process. But also, and I think you're hinting at this too with your own experience. But for me, it was hard to even leave because
Yeah.
your social network is this community of people that centers around you believing this thing, and if you don't believe in this thing, what do you have at that point? So it's kind of like you're not it's not the acceptance or denial of a philosophical position. It's more like your social safety net. It's like your social world is also can be tied to it, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Mm,
and for a pastor too, it's every part of your life is completely tied in with
yeah.
all of it. It's community, family, your finances, it's your
Mm,
job. And so everything I knew, every part of my life was tied in with that. So
mm,
leaving was very hard, very difficult. I had to know that I wanted to leave because
yeah.
I knew that I would be cutting off so many people from my life after that.
So before we get to that, let's rewind a little bit because you're at this boot camp and it's just a couple
Yeah.
months that you go through this training.
Well, it's 9 months at a time, kind of
9 months.
similar
Okay.
to what it would be for school.
Oh wow. So it is like
So
a full school. So how many years did you do that?
5 years
5 years.
total? I ended up becoming one of the directors eventually.
Wow. So you did 5 years of this program, 9 months at a time,
Mhm.
of basically learning how to serve in a leadership role within a church community, or maybe it's a little bit more than that. Maybe it's like some.
Well, we were stationed out of a church,
Okay.
and we would do our Bible college courses. We would also have our daily worship every day.
Okay.
And then we were also leading like the youth groups on Wednesday nights and helping with kids' church, things like that.
Okay.
And then we were going from there to other churches traveling around the country basically, and we would go to their youth groups on Wednesday nights or their church services on Sundays, and we would put together the whole church service.
Wow.
So we
That
also
sounds like
did
a lot
these
of work.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So we would basically do these things called human videos. They're really dorky looking back on them, but
Mhm.
basically acting out scenes or maybe sign language or dances to music, and we would perform these in front of the church. So they usually had some sort of religious undertone, some more than others. And then there'd be a couple of us that would give testimonies. The director of the program would always preach. Sunday mornings, we would always get the offering from the adults. I mean,
Mm.
look, this is looking back on it.
So,
This is how I perceive it, is that Sunday mornings we would go to get the offering from the adults, and then Wednesday nights when would go to their youth group, we would have the same type of format, but our goal there more so would be to talk to the juniors and seniors to
so
recruit them.
you're traveling all over the place to do this.
Yeah.
So are you paying for this yourself, or
Yes.
really? So they don't
And we weren't
fund
allowed to
any of
have a
that.
job or anything either. So
Yeah.
we would raise money, kind of similar to how you would if you were gonna go to a missions trip, but
Wow.
raising money for the whole year.
So you have to raise money for the whole year yourself, and I'm not surprised by this, by the way. I'm saying wow, but like, anytime I was a part of Crew, for example, Crew, Campus Crusade is what it used to be called.
Oh, yeah.
So like they have entire conferences where the whole conference is just like, oh, here's some cool mission trip places you can go to. By the way, you need to raise $9,000 if you want to go here yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm hearing you describe. I mean, you're doing labor, you're doing work, and you're
Yes, a
paying
lot
to
of
do
labor.
this labor. I mean, that is very fascinating, isn't it? Looking back at that,
It
because
is.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you probably didn't see it as that at the time, though. I
Mm-mm.
imagine. Yeah. So you did this for 5 years, and then you started serving as an assistant pastor of a church for a while after that, or
Yeah,
mm,
so when I was a student for the master's commission, I had started dating the assistant director of the program.
mm,
After we got married is when we both took over as directors of the program. Eventually, it kind of fizzled out a little bit, and then we became assistant pastors of the church
wow,
for
okay,
about 4
and
years. So I was in
for
full-time ministry for 9 total.
now you get paid for that, right?
I mean, ish. He
Ish?
did. He
Ish?
did. We would get paid very, like, it was poverty level. It was barely
Yeah.
anything.
Wow.
And so it was kind of like a 2 for 1 deal, basically.
Interesting.
They would basically pay my ex-husband, but we would both be working full time, essentially.
Oh, so because he's the man in the relationship and they give the funds to him, is that kind of how you think about it, or
Yeah,
wow.
basically.
Wow.
And, he was also worship leader too, so still is.
Wow. Yeah, so obviously, you go by Apostate Ashley now
Mhm.
because you are no longer a Christian as far as I'm aware.
No, not at
So
all.
yeah, so obviously something happened there. What was that journey like, sort of getting out of it? When did you start thinking that none of this was actually real?
Well, it was somewhere around the time I was 26 or so. I think I left when I was 27.
Okay.
So, I started questioning somewhere around the, like, 2012 elections.
Mm,
Kinda similar to how, the last big election, it kind
sure.
of it kind of opened your eyes to a
2016
lot of
opened
things.
Oh, 2016 opened people's eyes to a lot of things, some of it to lizard people and some of it to,
Yeah.
other things, right? Like, true things. But yeah, I totally get what you're coming at. Yeah.
So one of the things is kind of like I realized I didn't really want to be on the wrong side of history for one
Mm,
thing, and I didn't agree with a lot of the things that the other staff members thought of when it came to that stuff politically. But also the biggest thing was I think it was the internet. I had been talking to people on Facebook. That was when I started to get a little bit more involved with that and finally actually talking to atheists and people that just thought differently than me. And then I started listening to more podcasts, reading more books, watching debates.
mm.
And it was kind of a big deal for me to go in and listen to debates, to listen to an opposing point of view, because I for the very first thing that perked my interest and got me onto the road of skepticism was the hell doctrine.
Hmm.
I looked into the original words that hell was translated from and realized that there was no reason to really believe in a literal hell, even biblically.
Sure.
Then I realized that there was no sufficient evidence for Jesus. And at that point, I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
Evidence for Jesus existing,
uh,
or
it- just evidence for Jesus, period. I guess I can't.
just doing his thing. Well, you know, some people, some atheists, you do you take the mythicist position that Jesus
I
wasn't
probably
real?
am a little bit
Okay.
more towards the mythicist, but at the
Okay.
same time, I can't really say that I don't, I don't know if he was real or not,
Sure.
but I don't see any reason to believe that he was, at least to the point of dedicating my entire life to it like I
Sure.
was,
It's yeah, and I think that's a very common thing, right? It's like even if you what you know, sometimes I read the mythicist scholarship and it's, you know, obviously it's not mainstream that position, but it's like, okay, yeah, there may be some good points here. Either way though, right? The dude, if he even if he was here real, he's not who people say he was, right? Like definitely not that. So there's no reason for me to even keep believing, right? But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there was no evidence for the resurrection, so it was just
sure.
kind of one of those things where I was like, what am I doing thinking about that any of the supernatural stuff is real? I actually don't really see any of this stuff at all.
Mm.
And Jesus says that we're supposed to do greater things than these, but I don't see the greater things happening.
I think it's interesting you're talking about this because you you have this background where you're doing mission work and you're going out and you're supposed to be talking to people and sharing with people, but you're telling me that your doubts didn't start until you actually started talking to atheists. I guess you didn't encounter a lot of atheists in your mission work, or people that
Not at
weren't already
all.
Christians, really? Hmm.
Yeah, not really at all. I mean, because we always traveled to churches and stuff. We didn't really talk to
Right.
people that challenged any of it. And
Mm.
so when people started challenging and even asking me simple questions like, well, why do you believe what you believe? And having more in depth conversations, I realized my apologetics actually really sucked. And so,
I but and then you want but did you go with the mindset? Because I had this too, where when I first really encountered apologetics and I finally knew what that word meant, it was like, "Well, I wanna find the best arguments." And then you try to
yeah,
do that, and it's like, "Oh, these don't work either." You know, did you
yeah,
kinda have that
exactly.
moment? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was trying to read like Lee Strobel books and stuff like that. And that's kind of when I started to get a little bit more introduced to Bart Ehrman
Mm,
and some of that,
yeah,
realizing that a lot of the books were forgeries and
yeah,
just the lack of evidence. And then the gospels, that really got to me when I found out how how much they don't add up on basic information, even
yes,
on the ministry of Jesus, and how they were written decades, if not even a century after the supposed event. So it was like, okay, so this can't be eyewitness accounts. And
sure.
it just all started to fall apart
Yeah, so you're
little
going
by
through.
little.
Yeah, that makes sense, and for a lot of I mean, for me, it was definitely this way, for a lot of people, it happens little by little, you know, I see this happen all the time for people. Somebody has a worldview that's different from theirs, and it's like, oh well, if you just knew X, Y, and Z, you're not going to have that worldview. And you just some people think if you just throw that at people, that's just going to change their mind. But the truth is, especially with Christianity, right? When you're inculcated in that culture, but also in that doctrine for so long. I mean, you are indoctrinated, right? Like that's what it means to be indoctrinated. Like it's going to take time for you to kind of come out of that after you believe it for
Yeah,
so long. Yeah, for sure.
definitely. It's the indoctrination that really gets you. It's so weird to look back on it and think, how did I not see some of this stuff
Mm,
before? But it's
mm,
the indoctrination.
yeah.
It's
And especially when you are living in, as you've described, poverty wages, right? Like when you've dedicated your life to this, one, that's an embarrassing thing, right? It's an embarrassing thing to be like,
yeah.
oh, I was wrong about this. But also it's like, again, where do you go? So that's what I want to actually like. So you're figuring out that maybe this stuff isn't real. Did you have an exit plan here? What happened when you started having these doubts?
Well, okay, so this is why the Clergy Project is a good thing because I was not a
Mm,
part of it at this time,
yeah.
and I really wish I would have because what I needed to do was make a really good plan to get out
Mm,
because I did not have a good plan. I left kind of abruptly at the end when I started to feel so uncomfortable being a part of the church services. I could no longer sit in there in the sanctuary during the preaching, and definitely not the worship. It was so uncomfortable.
mm,
And then I started getting to the point where I didn't even want to go to church at all. So I said, I'm not coming back. I'm done. And that started to really cause a lot of issues with everyone. So I got on a bus, a mega bus with my daughter and a suitcase and I came back to Ohio. So I was preaching, well, I was a pastor in Iowa and I was 10 hours from home where I grew up in Ohio and I had actually called my stepdad who luckily, thank goodness, was actually an atheist, and I asked him to help me out and convince my mom to let me to come home, and luckily my mom was always really awesome with it even though she is a Christian, and I was
mm.
able to come home and stay with family
Yeah.
before
Wow,
I got on my feet.
that's really good because a lot of people don't have that option when it comes to family. Sometimes their family is a part of the church that they're a part of and stuff, and it's like they can't. Yeah, yeah, and that's interesting. So I'm glad you brought this up. And first of all, before I talk about this, folks, we do have open lines. We love to talk to you, and it doesn't have to be about Christianity. Of course, we're talking about it right now because it's relevant to Ashley's story. But this is Truth
Yeah.
Wanted. We talk about Bigfoot, aliens, UFOs, and also weird stuff. But right now, we are talking about Christianity with Apostate Ashley here and her story. So if you have questions for her as well, she would love to hear from you. But so you managed to get out of that, and then now you're a part of the Clergy Project. You're a board member of the organization, and now you're kind of helping other people also get out, right?
Yeah, for the most part, most of the members are already out.
Mm,
So the majority are ex-clergy, but there are a few that are still clergy and they're trying to make a plan to get out because for some the education is just lacking
sure.
completely. All they know is the church world and they have, like myself, the only education they have is, like a Bible and theology degree.
Yeah,
And so it's hard to get into the real world because we have no experience with it. And
yeah.
so it's maybe making some plans to there's a career training course that they can actually go through. One of our members heads that up and that's actually really pretty cool. It's actually pretty similar to the career course that my daughter actually takes in school, in public, like online school.
Mm,
And it's very beneficial to try to understand all the different portions of or types of I don't know what the word is for it, but the different sections of careers that are available out there,
hmm.
as well as maybe even the push to hang out there for a little while. As sucky as that sounds, but continue taking some courses online discreetly and try to get on your feet a little bit so when you
Yeah.
leave, you're not,
You're
like,
not just
living in
completely
your
out
car.
there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like just because like how sad is it that I'm sure you can tell me stories, right? But just from people I've talked to on this show alone, how many people just get left hung out to dry after
Oh,
they
yeah.
really come out, right? And it's like, well, isn't the whole point of being Christian is to love all people, not just like other Christians? But like in my experience, I could tell you, yeah, I had at least one friend who I'll never forget who called me when she found out and that I've been online as well, showing my face and talking about people, and she said I was just going to go to hell, and that I should be worried about that. Like I'll never forget that because this is a person who I was friends with for years, and is suddenly like,
Mhm.
oh well, now you can't be friends with me anymore because I'm not who you think I am, I guess, but I'm more me now than I've ever been, and if you don't like that, then well, I don't know. And that's a really hard thing for people to go through, and I'm really glad organizations like the Clergy Project exist to help people, with that stuff, right? So like, so you are helping people sort of some who are already there, but also folks who are already out and trying to get some of those skills and get people like moving on with their lives past
Yeah,
this stuff.
definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, because some of our members have been out for a long time.
Mm,
They're maybe a little bit older, and they've they've been a part of the Clergy project since the very beginning. It had
mm,
started back in 2011. So, we have a whole smorgasbord of people that kind of come from, either being just recently out or having been out for a long time. So, we are able to kind of support one another and talk, either within the forums and or on our hidden Facebook account,
mm.
and just kind of bounce things off of each other and support each other. And it's just really great to get a variety of opinions.
Yeah, yeah, that is really amazing that an organization like that exists. I'm really glad that it does, and we will be posting some links to that as well at the end of the show, and let you be able to talk about it more as well. But for now, I'm seeing the time here, Ashley, and I think it's about time that we
Okay.
talk to some people on the phone. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good. That went by fast.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. Well, before we do that though, Ashley, we always thank our patron of the week because every single week we always give a shout out to the folks who donate on patreon.com. Folks at Patreon, thank you so much for donating. This week's patron of the week is a bit of a special one here. It is our associate producer Katie Stewart, who is not here this week, and I'm shouting her out because she has been donating for years, and I just want to see if she picks up on it and actually watches the show this week. So that's why she's our patron of the week, but she is on the list. So, we're giving her the shout out today. If you would like to get a shout out, you should consider donating on Patreon and supporting this show. I do not get paid to do this. Ashley's not paid here today. None of our hosts get paid. The majority of the work, or a lot of the work, is done by volunteers. So when you donate on Patreon, it helps the mission of the atheist community of Austin. So consider doing that if you haven't already. This is our altar call, Ashley. Essentially, this is our altar call. So
Passing around the offering
yeah,
plate.
we are passing around the offering plates. So thank you again, Katie, for donating, and thank you to everyone who donates on Patreon. So for now, before we do though, I will also say there are other ways to support the show. If you'd like to become a member on YouTube, you can do that as well. You get emojis in the chat, your name gets highlighted. You're also going to be immune to chat timeouts if you do that, and you can do that for as little as 99 cents per month, which is, I mean, I know the economy is really bad right now, grocery prices are sky high, but 99 cents a month is still not like that much. So consider if you'd like to support the show. And now that I got that out of the way, Ashley, it is finally time for us to talk to some folks. You ready?
I'm ready. This is exciting.
All right, let's do it. So we have one person who wants to talk to us. We have a theist, Joe, who is calling in from California. Joe, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hello?
Hello, Joe. You're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Oh, well, I was going to talk about, seeing entities before. I saw these shadow people a few years back. I wasn't the only one who saw them. My son saw them too. And they were like in my house. We had a common bed, a common hallway, and I had one bedroom. He had the other bedroom. And he thought I was spying on him, and I thought he was looking at me, and then there was this thing like in the hall, out of the hall door was like a black shadow figure, and there was three little ones in the bottom going in circles. My son saw it too. So I'm just saying that freaked me out when I saw that. And and
That's
I
interesting.
had become a Christian, and I called the church and asked the pastor to come in and pray over the door. And then I looked it up on the computer, and it was in the computer.
There were people in the computer.
No, no, no. When I looked up shadow people, I go, what did that look
Oh,
like?
you
Does it look like?
okay? Gotcha.
I looked it up on the
Okay,
computer. I typed in shadow people, and that's when it popped up. And that really freaked me out when I saw that.
so
So,
this was a one-time event. This wasn't like a recurring thing where you kept seeing things. You just
no,
saw it.
no, I didn't want to see him again. I didn't want to see him again after that. When I saw
Okay,
that, it freaked us both out.
and your son was there as
Then I,
well,
then
and
I,
also,
pardon?
mm, yeah, I was just commenting. You
Then
said your
I was
son
also,
also saw that.
yeah, he was there too. We both saw it. So if I was by myself, I would have never told anybody. I just kept it to myself, and I wouldn't have said anything. But he was there too, and like I thought it was. I thought whatever that was in the hallway, it was kind of like we had a light on in the living room, a low light on in the living room. And you could see this shadow figure in there in the hallway, just standing there. Like well, outside the hallway, it was like, but it was almost as tall as the ceiling in the living room where it was. And he was looking out of one bedroom, and I was looking out of the other bedroom. There was like a common door coming into the hallway between the both rooms.
So you saw this, and you called a pastor, and a pastor did like a blessing over the
He
house.
didn't believe me either when I told them. They didn't believe me either. I said, that was real. But you know what's weird? My son was hanging around with these devil worshiper people whose dad was the head of a coven, and all their phone numbers when they'd call had 66666 on the phone numbers, and on the back of they had an old Volkswagen van had 6. I go, why do they got that on the back of the window? Well, they think it's funny. I go, I don't think it's funny.
So you think
my son saw that?
You believe that may be related to why you saw shadow people, is that your son was hanging out with some of these folks?
With those people.
Okay.
Exactly.
Does he still hang out with them? Does he? I mean, has he hung out with them since then?
No. My son he wasn't a believer in Jesus till he saw that. And then when the pastor came over, and I told the pastor, and he came over, and he I don't know if he believed me or not, but he took olive oil and anointed the door and said they can't come back. I never seen him after that. But
so you think these shadow people? You think that they were demonic in nature? You do think?
Of course, they were demonic. They were. Yeah, they were demonic.
Okay,
yeah, demonic. They had to do with the dark side. Then I started studying.
Go ahead.
You remember L.A. Marzulli, where he does like stuff on UFOs and paranormal stuff, and he talked about shadow people on his show. I saw other people that seen him on his show too. You can look up L.A. Marzulli. He does all those things, those megalithic structures all over the earth, Stonehenge and the pyramids and all kinds of weird stuff, paranormal activity and UFOs and all that stuff. And he talks about that on his show all the time too. And that's when I saw it just recently. In fact, I saw it about 3 days ago. They were talking about the shadow people. That's what brought it back to my recollection. I didn't want to remember, but I'm telling you the truth. Whatever it was real.
I believe you definitely had an experience that obviously frightened you enough to motivate, the action that you called for, which was, hey, I'm going to call this person and they can anoint this place or do whatever to like get rid of this thing you experienced. I don't want to belittle anything you're telling me and say, oh no, I believe you're definitely frightened. What I am skeptical of though, and what I'm curious is that it's some sort of real sort of entity. Because the thing is, like, I think everybody can at least, I can definitely say, I think I've seen things out of the corner of my eye. I've definitely been, scared of some stuff that I've encountered that wasn't actually there. So like, this is a very curious call here, Joe, because it was like, you said you have this experience with these shadow people and you see other people talk about these shadow people. And so that kind of informs your worldview that, oh, this was definitely something demonic in nature. But like, I mean, was there any particular reason why these shadow people were even there in the first place? Are they just like hanging out, or like how does this work?
Because my son was hanging around with devil worshippers. They were going up in the mountains over here. They were doing work. They were sacrificing animals and stuff up in the mountains.
Oh,
they go up there. They burn animals. They burn cats and stuff like that. And he was hanging around. Again, the guy's dad he was hanging with was the head of a coven. I went to the guy's house, and when I saw the guy, his eyes were like black. When I stared at the dad, he had long black hair. He was all dressed in black. I went to visit. I go, I want to see who my son's hanging with. So I went over there. When I went to the house, I met the dad. And the dad, when I saw the dad and I started talking about Jesus to him, the dad gave me like a dirty look. I'm telling you the truth. I'm not lying. I have no reason to lie.
No, I believe that. When you start talking about Jesus to most people, they give you dirty looks. You know what I mean, Joe? Like that part, I definitely believe you on. But I was an atheist.
I was an atheist. I used to be an atheist. Believe me, I was an atheist. I used to call all these other stations and try to disprove the Bible. Then I started reading the Bible. Then when I started reading the Bible, and then when these things convinced me. Then my friend Robert, my other friend Robert had a similar experience. I was talking to him about 3 years ago, and I told him the story, He goes, well, me and my aunt had the same experience you had.
So can I ask you this? Like, let's say this as a hypothetical, that we're talking about somebody who lives in Japan, and they start to see shadow people there, and they ask a Shinto priest to do a sort of ceremony to get rid of these shadow people, and they don't experience shadow people anymore. Would you say an experience like that would lend credence that Shintoism is a real religion? In other words, that the beliefs that people who practice Shinto are more legitimate because of this experience. If you heard that, for example.
I don't think they pay any attention to anybody. They're just after the humans. I don't think they're going after any religion. I just think they
No.
exist, and I don't think
So
they pin
what I'm trying to establish here,
Shinto
because Joe,
or
what you said, Joe, was very crucial, because I mean, you said this informed your Christianity. Like you said, am I wrong here? Like this is what made you a more believing Christian. This experience, right?
yeah. Well, I read scriptures, and the Bible says Jesus puts everything under his foot, and by the name of Jesus, the demons shudder at the sound of his name. So the
Sure.
demons know he exists.
And
So
and look,
that's when I read.
and again, I get you, Joe, but I'm just talking epistemically here, right? If we're talking about epistemology, how we know the things that we know, I'm just describing, maybe somebody tells me this experience, right? That they saw some shadow people, they practiced a Shinto ritual, and they got rid of it. Does that lend more credence to Shintoism? If somebody were to
I
describe
don't
me
think
that
there's any
experience.
credence to any. Well, like I said, I don't think these entities care what religion you are. They come after anybody.
I get you, but like,
In.
so, but like, if somebody had that experience, right? Like, and if other people can have similar experiences, doesn't that mean that maybe this
They
could be
wouldn't
more
want them. They
universal?
wouldn't want us.
I'm talking purely hypothetically here, Joe. I'm not saying I know anybody where this has personally happened to them or whatever, but you said
I
this
can't really
experience.
answer that question. I couldn't really answer that question. I
Okay,
don't.
oh, that's fair.
I know I was. And my son wasn't my son was a complete atheist. He used to get mad when I mentioned the name Jesus, and like I said, he was hanging around with these devil worshippers, and I don't know what he was doing hanging around with them. But
I hear you, Joe. I promise you
Crowley,
this. I've talked to more. I think I've hung out with and probably talked to more devil worshippers than your son has. All right. I'm just saying, because I do this show and I've talked to a lot of people. And I've never had that experience. Now, I'm not saying that dismisses the legitimacy of your experience. What I am saying is it is possible that your cultural influences can help interpret some of the events that you see. Because, like, look, if I saw shadow people, I don't know what I would think, to be honest with you. That would kind of freak me out too. But
every hair in your body, you'd be freaked out if you saw them. Especially
absolutely.
I
But I also know this,
I
Joe.
I
Here's what
wasn't
I
by
also
myself.
know.
My son was there. My son was
Here,
there too. That's the thing. So I would have never told anybody. Then, like I said, the other day.
I hear you. Listen, Joe. Listen, I gotta cut you off. I gotta cut you off because listen, I believe that you had an experience that frightened you and obviously informed your worldview. But what I'm saying is, I think this experience, what you're describing, is actually cross-culturally more common than you might think. And the point I was trying to make at earlier is, okay, like if we can describe similar circumstances and similar situations in which the problem was solved differently. Let's say a Sufi Muslim, for example, did a kind of ritual to help dispel what they interpreted as a demonic force. Does that lend Islam to be more true? I don't know. Like the problem I have with a testimony like this is just like, look, if we can point to other experiences and they could lead you to different conclusions, then how do we know this experience can reliably inform you of your own conclusions, right, Joe? I unmuted you now, so.
Okay. Well, like I say, I don't know. Like I said, I just know that they're real. And me happen to be a Christian. I went searching to the Bible for answers, and it says that you could pray over it. That's when I started reading the Bible again more thoroughly than I did before. It's led me to read the Bible.
I've been talking a lot here. I get you. When it comes to other, cultures and stuff, right? I'm not an expert either, but I am aware that, this isn't the first time somebody has said that they've seen shadow people. And I also know that there's probably been other sort of solutions to this problem, right? But anyway, I'm talking a lot. I want Ashley to kind of chime in. Ashley, do you have any questions for Joe here?
Well,
What do you
I
think about
guess
the conversation?
I'm wondering, like, when you saw these shadow people, what was like, how long did that last? What was the duration of it? Was it a few seconds? Was it for minutes?
Good or 3 or 4 minutes. I thought I was looking. I was going, "Is that you, Taylor? Is that you? Who are you? Who is that?" Then he goes, "What are you talking about? Are you spying on me?" I go, "I'm not spying on you. I go in my bed." He goes, "Are you spying on me?" And we were 2 or 3 minutes. It wasn't just flash. It was there. It was real.
Do you think it's possible that there could be a logical explanation for what you were seeing?
No,
Maybe
because no.
do you have any animals in your
Like I said,
home?
yeah, I have a cat, but my cat was in the bed with me.
Maybe, I mean,
If they were demonic, though, wouldn't you think that they would have some sort of objective more than just to stand there and spin?
true.
Well, like I said, my son didn't see the ones spinning. I saw the ones on the ground. There were like little ones by this big one's feet. There was a big one and 3 little ones. They had like little hoods on. They looked like, well, they were shadows. They were like dark shadows, like a shadow. And then my son saw the bigger one. I saw all 4 of them.
Yeah.
He
What
only saw one.
time of day was this? Do you recall?
This was at night.
At
This
night.
was an evening time, and I had a light on. I had a light on in the living room. And I had a light on in the living room, and I had another night light on in the kitchen. And then I turned the lights on in my bedroom, and I could still see them. I turned the lights on right away when I turned the lights on to look, And then I got up, and then they disappeared.
Mm.
We both got up and looked. Me and my son got out of bed and looked and went in the hallway, and then they disappeared.
Yeah, that sounds like a very scary story, Joe. I mean, I imagine if I experienced what you experienced, and I believe, what I'm seeing are, evil demons in my house, I'd probably be scared of that too, even if they were just hanging around. But I don't know. When I hear a story like that, I wish you could show me more. I wish you had pictures of them or something. I wish we had audio or something, because otherwise,
I had a picture of them. I wish I had a
Yeah.
picture of them too. I had another experience when I was younger too. A long time ago, I went to see the movie The Exorcist. And then one night I went to sleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night. My bed was shaking, just rattling, coming off the floor, shaking. I got up.
Yeah.
I remember I got up, and I said, "What the heck was that? Was I dreaming that?" I go, "Was I dreaming, or was that real?" I couldn't tell. That's another weird experience I had. Those are 2
Interesting.
weird
So, Joe,
experiences I had.
how confident are you in your explanation? And from a scale of like 0 being I'm not confident at all, 100 being I'm 100% confident that this thing happened. How confident are you that what you saw that day was demons and not anything else?
You know what? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you how confident I am. I'll give you my son's telephone number. I haven't talked to him. You can call him and ask him. He'll tell you the same story, and we haven't even collaborated on anything.
We don't do outgoing calls, but if he wants to call into the show, that'd be great.
I could have my friend take me. My son will call in. He'll tell you the truth because he
You know what?
So it wasn't just me.
You know what, Joe? I'd be excited about that because that would be the first time somebody has called in about a story and has brought in a corroborating witness. That would be actually really interesting. I would like that.
I'm gonna call my son and I'll tell him the story. I'll give you your number and I'll say you can call in and tell him yourself, and then you can ask him.
100%. No, I would love to hear more. I want to hear his son. I want to hear the other son's point of view. Maybe that's how we should table in this conversation, because we do have a couple other people that want to talk to us. But it's like, if we can actually talk to somebody else about it, that'd be cool. Because otherwise, a story like this, all it's going to be between us, Joe, is just a he said, she said scenario. You know what I mean? Right. I wasn't there. Mm-hmm. I can't really do anything with it. But what I will say is, you'd be surprised that even when other people are there to experience something, that you can be deceived in what's actually going on. I will at least leave it at that, because us, for example, Ashley and I mean, I'm sure Ashley could tell you even more about lots of worship experiences and things that she's probably seen in her church, right?
Yeah, sometimes I look back on situations and I'm like, what actually happened?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like listening to this, yeah. When I'm listening to this, I think, what kind of were you in a sleeping state and then you woke up and was your mind foggy? Could it be something logical, like a branch or something?
Mm.
We had just gone to bed. It was like maybe I'd say about 11, 12 o'clock at night. 11 o'clock. We just went to bed, both of us. And he was like, he was in one bedroom and I was in the other bedroom.
Yeah,
my cat was on the bed with me, so there was nothing else. There was no shadows, and the drapes and the things were drawn and everything. There was no light coming in from the outside. I was saying maybe there's a shadow coming in. Because I got up, I looked around. I said, "What? Is that real?"
Yeah, we are about out of time for this call right
Okay.
here, but I'm gonna call this part 1. Okay, you, Joe, I'm relying on you. You got to make part 2 happen. Have your son call into the show because that I'm genuinely interested.
will.
I want to see what happens because that has never happened in the history of this show. Having 2 people call about the same event that they witnessed. I would love for that to happen. So if you can
Yeah,
make it
the
happen,
testimony
Joe,
of two
that'd be great.
witnesses. Yeah, testimony
Yeah,
of two witnesses.
testimony
Well,
of 2
you know, here's
witnesses.
another weird thing.
We're gonna have the
The other
gospel of
day I was
Joe
watching
and the gospel of Joe's son right here on this show.
Huh.
That'd be great. But that's it, Joe.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I know you got more you want to talk to me about, but I really do got to let you go because we're out of time for this call. But thank you again for calling in and sharing that story. I do genuinely appreciate it because although obviously I'm very skeptical about the events of which Joe has described, it is interesting that he has at least one other person who he claims can also corroborate his story because that typically doesn't happen with stories like this. But I don't know. What do you think of that call, Ashley?
I don't know. Okay. So when I was in high school, I thought I had seen a demon too. I thought
Really?
that, yeah, there was one time I thought that I saw a shadowy thing with red eyes walk past my room. But, your mind can play tricks on you,
Yeah.
especially in the dark, especially when you're in a half awake sleep state or
Yeah.
whatever. Or if you just kind of have those things in your mind and you kind of expect that those things could be real. Plus,
Sure.
on top of it, some of the more supernatural type things in services, sometimes it's just like dopamine and
Hmm.
oxytocin highs and things like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Yeah.
those play a big role into it.
I guess I guess it's implied by this story, but the person who came in anointed him sounds like they didn't witness this. I feel like he would mention that if that happened. I'm making an assumption. I don't know if that's true, but it does sound like it was with 2 people that happened for just like a few minutes. And people talk about like you're saying sleep paralysis does happen. It does kind of make you see things sometimes. I don't know. I in my
Yeah.
opinion, and my guess is that's probably what's going on here, but we gotta wait for part 2 here, okay? Joe, you gotta make part 2 happen and have us call in. But we have other folks we gotta talk to. Before we do, though, I want to remind you guys that our Truth Wanted store is up and running, and we have been featuring a limited time shirt for each month, as you can see on the screen here in just a second. But we, of course, have all the regular stuff, the shirts, the mugs, the cool swag. But of course, we are featuring a t-shirt once a month. And there we go. This month's shirt is Truth Wanted, always keep wanting the truth. And it's got someone being abducted on there. And I think it's a cool shirt. So you should
That
definitely
is
pick that
sweet.
up. Yeah. So check that out. And of course, all of our other ACA merch can be found at tiny.cc/merch ACA. And if you want to hear audio versions of this show, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts for all the latest audio versions of the show. Sorry, folks, I'm a little nasal again. I am recovering from a cold here, and I decided, hey, it would be great if I talked for an hour and a half while I'm still recording, while I'm still sick. Ugh, see, I can't even think straight. But anyway, maybe it's demons. I don't know. It could be people possessing me right now. I don't see anything in this room, but we got time. So any demons out there who want to be on the show, I'll schedule you. We'll make you a guest, and we'll get you on. But we have a couple of people, also some other theists who'd like to talk to us, which is great. I see at least 2. We hopefully we'll try to get to everybody on the line tonight. So if you're on the line, please stay on. I'll try to get you. For now, though, I want to talk to Jim, who's calling in from New Jersey. First we had Joe, now we got Jim. Jim from New Jersey, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hello. Yeah, so I'm a Christian, and yeah, I pretty much kind of like just get you guys just kind of, ask me anything, because throughout my life, I've seen a lot of things about the Bible that didn't look good, and then I've learned about things, and then I saw it from the other way.
Yeah, well, here's what the call screener wrote, and they said that you wanted to know of us why we think the God of the Bible is bad. Was that something you were interested in talking to us about?
Yeah, that was pretty much what I was going to explain.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Like the reasons why you think.
Yeah, well, one, I think it's important to point out that I don't think the God as described in the Bible, Old Testament or New Testament, exists. I don't currently hold a belief that they exist as an entity, right? So I can describe their characteristics, but that doesn't mean that I think that they exist as a thing, right? Just getting that out there because some people get confused. They're like, how can you say that something that isn't real is bad? Well, I also don't think like Peter Pan is real, but I can tell you about their character as people have depicted them, right?
Mhm.
So that's how I feel about the
Yeah.
Bible when it comes to God, right? Like God has been depicted by different authors at different times in history. The Bible encompasses thousands of years worth. I mean, about 1,500 uh, years in the total span of the Bible, right? And encompasses all that work from different people at different times who interpreted God differently. So it's an idea that isn't single, I guess. It's more than one thing, right? So that's kind of the problem when we talk about the characteristics of God, because the God in the book of Genesis, for example, or even in just the Pentateuch, is different from the God of the New Testament, in my opinion. I don't even know if they're talking about the same being. Rather, they're just talking about what they perceive to be the same being, this kind of same idea. So, but if we want to talk about why I think God is bad, pretty simple. He told people to do bad things. I mean, that's it. Like, he was
Mhm.
definitely okay with people owning other people. He was definitely okay with Israel invading other nations, and killing people and having this sort of vengeance. That was his idea of justice. He also definitely has talked about men and women being different. Well, I mean, again, this is authors' interpretations of what God thinks, but like, I think he's been used to uphold an unjust patriarchy in some ways, and sometimes just is blamed on for all kinds of things. Like, Christians say, well, God told me to do X, Y, and Z. So again, like this idea of God is also bad. But yeah, as far as the character that's described in the Bible, like Yahweh, like, yeah, they've also done a lot of bad things as well. I think killing people indiscriminately is wrong. So global flood is bad. If Jim from New Jersey did a global flood, I would say Jim was a bad person. But you haven't done that. At least I don't think so. But if a god did do that, then yeah, I think that's a bad thing to do. But again, there's a lot of things when talking about the Bible there. So there's my long explanation there. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was looking for like one specific reason. Just, I mean, like, I understand you don't believe in God. I'm just like the God of the Bible. Like, what is wrong, or just some specific reasons that we could talk about the depiction of God in the Bible.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think
Okay.
flooding people. I mean, if assuming the story's true, right? If God flooded the world and killed everybody on Earth, yeah, that's a bad thing to do. That's
That's
my
pretty
example.
genocidal and sadistic.
Yeah,
Like for me, I think of
Yeah.
the he had an opportunity to have this book be his form of communication with the people he created, but the first book of the Bible is just completely barbaric. He's
mm,
mentioning the flood, but there's also the story of Lot and his daughter. So you
right.
start off with rape and incest at the beginning, and and then there's slavery. And
Yeah,
then as you go throughout the book, it's just a lot of killing, a lot of hate and violence.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely hate and violence in the Bible. But that's just a part of reality. I mean, that like, what does God say about? Maybe we could talk about the
But
flood.
he made the 10
You know,
commandments though,
yeah.
and he had an
Well,
opportunity to make the 10 commandments say something like don't own another human being, but
yeah,
instead he made it more about like, hey, don't worship any other gods above me and obey your parents even though they might
Mhm.
be complete like abusive assholes.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Jim, do you
Mhm.
think that flooding the Earth, like if somebody did that, you would describe that thing as a bad person, whether they're a human being or something else, like just indiscriminately killing everybody on Earth is a bad thing?
Um, well, the thing is though, it's definitely something that would cause suffering in people's lives.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
I believe that God, the God of the Bible, and the hypothetical situation of God being just in all of his judgments and even causing suffering in certain people, it's always just because he's the higher power in the Bible. So it's pretty much just like, is God just for causing suffering in the world?
Yeah, and I would
As
say
he really
no.
should.
I don't think it's just. Why
Yeah.
should I believe it's just?
Yeah, I mean, just because hypothetically in the Bible, God is perfect and in all things that he does, I mean, he gave life, he gave us everything and whatever he finds suitable to, you know, either scourge or punish or even kill anyone. It's always right.
So
Is it though?
is this a might makes right scenario because God is just who he is, therefore everything he does is right?
Yeah, biblically, I mean, he's he's the Holy One. He's right in everything he does.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I mean,
like
uh,
do you think it's right because God says it's right, or do you think it's right because you think it's right?
well, I believe that God can do whatever he wants just based on me believing that God is holy, but also just biblically, not even taking my belief in God in the equation, just biblically, the Bible says, he is holy and, just to do as he pleases.
Do you
Just
think that that
based on
also
the
maybe kinda
Bible's
sounds like an
definition.
abusive relationship too, though? Like, what if you had a father and a son? Like, your dad, for instance, what if he was telling you all this stuff, convincing you, "No, I'm your father. Everything I say is right, and everything I'm telling you is just. So, even though I'm maybe beating you or telling you to do something that you shouldn't be doing, it's okay because I said it's right, because I everything I say is right."
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe that, like an earthly father is not like literally God to a child. I mean, if the father is literally like a demon possessed, I think God is going to forgive, a child for like running from his father, who's telling him to, worship other gods or something like that.
Why? Wait,
Or,
why do you think that though? Because like God literally killed it. I mean, again, I don't know if you believe the flood is a true story. If you don't, then this is irrelevant. But like God literally just killed everyone, including children on Earth, because
mhm.
apparently they weren't holy enough, right? And that
Yeah,
includes
imagine the people floating around, like, it could have been,
yeah,
pregnant women, elderly people,
yeah,
children, all just, like, begging for their lives. That
yeah.
sounds messed
Mhm.
up.
I mean, I don't really know who those people were, but,
Does it
um,
matter?
like,
Yeah, why does that matter?
well,
Do you think if they were bad
I mean,
people, then that it's okay that they were killed in the flood?
oh yeah. I mean, everybody's worthy
Mm.
of condemnation, honestly. I mean, but I mean,
Everyone's worthy of dying in a flood?
everybody deserves death, I believe.
You think I deserve
Why?
why? Like, yeah, why?
Well, I believe that no man is able to stand before the throne of God's judgment without any forgiveness. Therefore, we're
Why?
all worthy of death. Why? I mean, just base level, believing in God's holiness, and believing in his commandments. I believe his commandments are just. I believe God is holy. And, I'm here to talk about any sort of commandments that you find to be foolish, evil.
Well, I
And,
mean,
because it really comes down. Mhm. Mhm.
I understand the common Christian conception of God is that he is a perfect being, right, who can do no wrong. And so therefore, if we're following like divine command theory, which is kind of I think what you're alluding to, then yeah, like God can do what he pleases and it doesn't matter. But I'm just wondering, like, if God is what determines what's right and wrong, how do you know what's right and wrong then? Because like if God, because like when I see an act of killing everybody in the world in a flood, I see that as a bad thing. I don't know how you can justify that other than, well, I'm God, so I get to say so. Like that's not a principle. You know what I mean? That's not really like a rule. It's just a rule of whatever I say goes. So like what why should I have to follow any other kind of principle then if it's just whatever says, right? Like I mean, do you think like morality can exist independently from God? Because otherwise, I mean, how do you even evaluate things if it's just it's whatever God
Mhm.
thinks is right. Because I mean, to me, again, if I heard anybody on earth say, "Yeah, my plan is to flood everybody in the world indiscriminately," I would say that's a bad thing. So, like, am I wrong in saying that's bad because, oh, God did it this time? Like, I don't know.
And also, how does that make him
I mean,
perfect too?
Yeah.
Because 5 chapters in, he's like, "I'm not happy with my creation. I'm gonna get rid of all of them except for Noah's family."
Right.
I mean, it's just a creation. It's not that
Just
important.
Other people?
It's just a created being. Yeah. I mean,
so if,
it's
like,
his
all of us
creation.
died right
What,
now, we
what do
would
we have?
we're just a creation, we're not important? If the flood happened right now,
Uh,
today, it would it wouldn't matter? None of us are important?
well, truthfully, no. I don't believe so, no.
Hmm.
Like, when you think about in the scheme of eternity and just, like, compared to, how good God is, I mean, the only thing that matters is God and what he can give us through love. I
What
mean, it's just
love do you
like
think we
compared.
experience from God?
Well, I believe the love of God is through Jesus and through His Word.
So he killed his son, and that's the way he showed us love? How else does he show us
Yeah,
love?
because He killed His son, and He was also risen from the grave. So, we can have His love through putting our faith on His Son and trusting that He lived for us without sin and rose again for us, so that we could be counted righteous and God could see us righteous just through putting our faith alone on His Son. And we would know the love of God that way through His Spirit, everlasting life.
Do you think it matters? Like if God can just kill us all in a flood, right? What and well, you're talking about love, right? God through the Holy Spirit, right, gives us the ability to love other people. I would argue that again, and I know I'm harping on this, but this is a really big sticking point for me. If I think you would agree, Jim, if I flooded the world, you would agree that that's not a loving act in any way, right? Even if I took your what you were saying and say, well, this is all just in the short term, right? Because we have eternity ahead of us. I think you would still describe me doing that as a bad thing, right?
I mean, you're you and God's God, though. You know,
Yeah, but why does that matter?
like if God caused me to get killed, even I would still love God.
Why?
Why?
Yeah. Why
Maybe He
would you
was
love
angry
someone that wants to kill you?
because He was angry with me, and he's it's all right. I don't.
Seems a little messed up, to be
Because
Yeah.
honest.
uh,
Why I mean, why does he being mad
here's what.
and why does he being angry at you justify your murder?
Because He gave me everything. I mean, let's just think hypothetically here about the
Yeah.
flood. God gave the whole world every breath they've ever had, every movement they've ever had, everything they've ever seen, all the good things, everything, their whole body, every part of their existence, was given by God. That's a lot to love Him for. And, if He's spiritually, people can love Him spiritually, but also there's so much to thank Him for. It's kind of overwhelming, hypothetically speaking.
I
Hmm.
mean,
Considering the flood, like say like He gave me everything and then He drowns me in a flood, I'd be like, wow, thank you for everything.
I don't know that everyone on Earth at the time, if the story was real, was given everything. But that aside, Jim, like, look again. If you describe the act of killing people in the way that you're describing to any other being besides God, we would call it psychopathic. We would call it murderous. I mean, it's literally worse than Hitler, right? Like at least with the Holocaust, it was only some people. We're talking about all people on Earth, right, that are dying because God is upset with them and he has a right because he created everyone. I really don't see the logic. I don't see why I created you, therefore I get to kill you whenever I want. I don't see how you can make that through line, you know?
You know, the Bible talks
I
about
think.
Satan saying that he's gonna steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
Yet in this situation, it really seems like it's God that's doing that. The only way that it really makes sense reading the Bible is if God's actually the bad guy, because I don't see any stealing, killing, or destroying done by Satan. It seems like it's
Oh,
God.
God's not stealing, because God, it's not even our life. You know, I mean, it's His to take, it's His to give, it's His to take. So it's not really stealing. And He also gives a lot. He doesn't just destroy. You know, He also has. There's a lot of goodness from God, but also He can destroy.
So
And there's nothing
so
He can steal.
is the
What about
flood
natural
act
disasters? That's destroying.
Yeah, that's interesting because you said there's a lot of good he can do, but he can also destroy. So, are you saying that his act of destroying is separate from an act of being good?
Well, it doesn't. Him doing destruction does not inherently make him unholy.
I mean, why
Him doing
not?
destruction is a form of, because it's a form of judgment. It's everything is about him and learning from him. You know, he is the father. So, you know, it's like if a father disciplines his son, why is he, you know, it's because he loves the world and he wants the world to know
Sure. Well,
how do you please God, what is right.
the point of discipline is to show the error of someone's ways so that they can do better, right?
Hmm.
Killing someone isn't discipline. There's no discipline there.
I know.
I mean, they can't
Yeah.
exist anymore in the world, you know? So what's the
Yeah, but
point of killing
he
everybody?
does
Honestly,
evil.
what's the purpose? Is it just because he wants to do it so he can? Is it to show a lesson? I mean, because I think
Well,
there's other ways you can
it,
show lessons. You know?
mhm. Well, it definitely was a symbol. I mean, he definitely used it as. I mean, but can I say 2 points?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
Go ahead, and we got to wrap up this call soon here, Jim. Just as a warning, but
Mhm.
go ahead.
It's that you know, he does kill sometimes, but he also just punishes, you know, physically on this earth. So a father, you know, he doesn't only just kill, but he does actually punish, just like in regular ways. Like, you know, you're gonna get afflicted in your life. You're not gonna enjoy, you know, what I'm gonna do. You know, and you can
Yeah.
learn from that. You know.
So why didn't he do that with the
Um,
people that were killed? Sorry, I know you had another question, but like if
no, that was
it's
it.
demonstrated that disciplining some people can work sometimes, why didn't he just discipline them instead of killing them?
Well, he just did that. I don't know. He decides to kill people sometimes, and that's his judge. It's not really for their learning, but also for the world's learning. So he just decided to kill them that time, and also he used it as a great symbol. The flood, the boat symbolizes Jesus being saved. You know, so he uses these things also as symbols, perfect symbols of the whole gospel, even. So that's one reason why he did that.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it is obviously symbolic to me, but it's symbolic in the sense of like, yeah, this is a mass murder that happened, and it's basically telling me if we don't listen to this guy, he's gonna do this to you, or he has the potential and right to do this to you. So
Yeah.
I mean, you better listen. I mean, like that when I hear that, that's what that sounds like to me. I don't know what act of love or mercy comes from killing the entire world and saying, I could do this to you too, by the way, but I'm not gonna. I mean, to me, that's not mercy. That's a threat. That's coercion, if anything.
Yeah, I mean that's one form of his way to get his points across, but also it's through his people being lights of the world through how loving they are and how obeying the laws of God through the people. Like
Right.
Israel should be a light to the world. So
I wish there was more of
that's the
that.
way he
I
does.
wish that had happened instead of killing everybody. Again, I don't believe the story is literally true, but
Mhm.
seems like
Yeah.
that would be better. I mean, do you not? Do you think so,
Yeah.
Jim? Do you think that would be better?
I think, sometimes he punishes on this earth just a little, like, and keeps people alive, and sometimes he punishes them to death, and it's whatever he does.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jim, that's about all the time I have because we have a bunch of other people that want to talk to us. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. But I appreciate you calling in, and
All right.
thank you for giving us that back and forth there. Ashley, what'd you think of that call?
It was pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about a person, yeah, that anybody that would do that that's pretty disturbing, right?
Like, should I take his example and treat my daughter that way?
Yeah,
It seems just I don't know. It's the only thing I could think of is it's disturbing. It's disturbing that this guy believes this stuff.
but you know what, Ashley, I believe the exact same thing. I really did. I just didn't. I at least I will say I will give credit to Jim here that he at least verbalizes it. I don't know if I would have been able to verbalize it that way, but at the end of the day, yeah, it really was just might makes right. God is just and holy because He says so, and we have to believe Him because He says we do.
Yeah,
Like that's kind of the logic. That's it. You know.
it's just everything he says is right and just and loving, and it's just that by default.
Yeah. Um. Which again, it just begs the question: how do we know what's right and wrong there if it's just whatever God says? I don't have access to what God is telling me what to do every day, right? He's not informing my actions. I mean, Christians obviously claim to have the Holy Spirit, but clearly, people who have had the Holy Spirit have had different ideas of what right and wrong are, right? Like, I think you can objectively look at that and point to all the denominations that have come out of Christianity and say, well, look, this is what we should be doing. This is what we shouldn't be doing. I mean, it doesn't seem very clear, you know?
No,
Just
not at all.
doesn't seem very clear. But I don't know. That's Christianity. That's Christianity for you. Don't know what to say about that. Other than look, before I move on to some other callers, and we got a lot by the way. I would need to speed things up here if I want to try to talk to some more folks. But you should email the show. You should. It's truth@atheist-community.org, or you can reach out to the ACA. It's tv@atheist-community.org and see what's going on our website at atheist-community.org. I like it when people email the show. It's nice. I get some good suggestions, by the way, for some deep dives and stuff, which is fun. I have a lot of deep dive material like ready to go at a moment's notice, but if you think you have a cool idea for a deep dive, I'm open to suggestions. So that's a good way to message me about those. Also, there is a Facebook group you should check out. It's run by fans for fans. You can go to tiny.cc/tbtwg to interact with other fans. So check that out if you want to be on Facebook. And hey, real quickly as well, have you ever said to yourself, I really like the content that the ACA makes, but I wish there was a way I could get it all the time? Well, check this out. There is a brand new 24/7 live stream of the Atheist Experience that you can watch and check it out. It's got all 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience on there, which is a lot of seasons. So there's
Mhm.
definitely stuff on there that you haven't seen before. Okay. I don't know if there's any human being that has watched every single episode of the Atheist Experience. If there is, I'd love to meet him because it's not me. I'll tell you that. But yeah, watch it there, or you can listen to the show and see stuff that you never heard of, some of the old hosts and new ones too. So check out tiny.cc/axptv to join in on the fun. And it's cool because, again, it's 24/7. So there's always people in the chat saying, like, what's up? So yeah, really, really fun. Actually, we got some more folks that want to talk to us. You ready?
Ready.
All right, let's do it. Next, we have GB, who's calling in from California. GB wants to know, why can't the Catholic Church be used as evidence for Jesus's existence? That's an interesting idea. GB, tell me more about that. You're live on Truth Wanted. What's up? GB, you are live on Truth Wanted. Can you hear us? All right, not hearing anything from you, GB. I'm going to put you back in the queue. You can try to talk to our call screener and see if you have any audio issues, but right now I can't hear you. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and talk to somebody else who wants to talk to us. We have Alex, who's calling in from Canada. Alex, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi. Just with the previous caller, you guys were talking about the flood. See, I think the flood actually happened in 2239 BC, according to scholars and chronologists. And I think the flood was just because humanity was just so wicked that he had to do a reset. So that's why it's written in the Bible, replenish the earth, because it was already full, but no.
So there was no other way to handle that situation other than we have to kill everybody. That was the best possible solution to the problem.
Right. Well, he kept Noah, in order to restart. But what makes you think you are what dies? We're just at the end of the day, we're just spirits inside a physical avatar.
Here's the thing. Later on in the same book, God sends down his son, Jesus, right, to forgive me of my sins so that I don't have to die, right? Like I don't have to live eternity apart from God. I can be with him, right? Why didn't he do something like that instead of killing everybody?
Well, the God of the Old Testament, right, Yahweh, is more of a false God. And it's not the same God as the New Testament.
Okay, so now we're getting into some Gnosticism. Are you a Gnostic, Alex?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, see, that would make you in the minority opinion of most Christians today, because Gnosticism, for those who aren't aware, obviously different forms of it predominantly, is an early form of Christianity that was deemed heretical by the Catholic Church, but they think a lot of stuff's heretical, so whatever there. Basically, it describes this idea that Yahweh is an entity or a spirit that's different from what's described in the New Testament in the life of Jesus. So just folks at home who are listening, is that a fair assessment, Alex?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. So Yahweh would be the demiurge, the creator of the physical world. So we are kind of prisoners down here.
Yeah. That is it's a very old belief tradition, about as old as Christianity itself. So interesting, Alex. You might be one of the first callers on my show that has explicitly held the Gnostic position. Why do you think God is even real? Why is that something you believe in?
Well, I mean, it's like undeniable to me because I could just look at nature and see, just a beautiful creation. And
so
it's
you look at nature and you see beautiful things. Why does that mean that there's a God?
Because everything's nature's intelligent. But what I wanted to come to,
we could. I know, Alex, you wanted to talk about something else, but real quickly here, you see beautiful things and there's a God, but could it be possible that beautiful things exist and also there might not be a God?
No.
Why not?
Everything's made through intelligence. It's just intelligent by design. I mean,
intelligent by design?
Yeah, that's the way I see it.
What makes you say that? What yeah, I agree. There's beautiful things. You got the Grand Canyon. You've got all the oceans of the world. I mean, there's a lot of good things, and I can be like, wow, yeah, that's pretty. But also, probably within a few miles of my house, there's a cat that's eating a rat, or there's somebody dying of cancer. I mean, there's a lot of bad things as well that seem to be just as prevalent as the good things, right? So, yeah, I recognize there's beautiful things and there's also aesthetically unpleasing things, but neither of those things necessarily point to a God for me, right? Like, why does that point to a God to you?
Well, it comes back to the demiurge, right? So, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of adversity. It's like there's inherent polarity, like red versus blue everywhere, whether it be the brain or the politics. Everything is just adversity, and that brings us back to the demiurge. Being the creator of this physical world, and this being kind of a trap, and that's why you have to kind of have faith in order to be to be out of that
Faith in what exactly?
inherent adversity.
In your view, what does faith mean?
Faith, it just means that we're made in the image of God, so we're basically eternal. So I just know that when my time is done on this earth, it's not over. It's only the end, but it's not over.
Okay, I've been asking a lot of questions here, Ashley. What do you got? I know you have some questions.
Well, I personally don't feel convinced that just because something's pretty that God automatically did it. But I also am wondering, do you think that humans are a perfect design by God?
Well, we're made in His image. We're the five like the final creation. Like I don't think there's any creation over us, right?
Do you think that there's a lot of flaws with the human body in general, though? So if he was a perfect God, wouldn't the design be perfect? I I'm asking because I'm
No.
specifically thinking of certain parts of the anatomy that aren't perfect.
Like, can you give me an example?
Our waist area is right next to our pleasure area. That's one.
I had to get my
Um,
appendix removed when I was in middle school because it was inflamed, and if I didn't have it removed by doctors, I could have died, like a lot of people have in the past.
People like,
Some
Dan, he's
people.
wearing glasses right now. His
That's
vision's
right.
not perfect.
Are those due
Sometimes
to
people
maybe
have crowded
choices you
teeth.
made in the past?
Say it one more time, Alex.
Is that due to choices you maybe done in the past, or?
My appendix? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's been any clear indication of when people's appendix ruptures or why. Well, I mean, most biologists, from my understanding, believe the appendix to be an organ that served a function in the past that it no longer serves to function and can actually disrupt our systems, as it obviously did with me, right? But it doesn't even have to be with me, right? There's people with cleft lips that are born. There's people that are born blind. There's people that are born deaf. There's people that are born with lots of things that they never necessarily did anything to deserve, nor their parents or anything like that, right? They're just kind of born that way, right?
Well, then again, they're born that way. Maybe they were placed there for a reason. Maybe it's a way to develop a part of their personality.
Yeah, but what about like? I'm sorry to be morbid here, Alex, but what about like Harlequin babies? Like, what about babies that don't survive childbirth process, or mothers that don't survive the childbirth process?
Well, then they'll be reincarnated and maybe try it all over again. It's
okay, but
what if reincarnation's not true? Like, what if that? I mean, like all we know is this life.
Well, I can give you a radio analogy, right? So, if you break let's say the radio is the physical body, and you break the radio. I mean, the signal is still present, just the radio is not working anymore.
But that's a dualism of a type, right? That's an idea that there's an us outside of our material selves. But why should we believe that to be true?
I mean, you can operate my brain, but you can't see my thoughts. When we go to sleep at night, we have a spiritual experience right then and there every night.
Well, I definitely can't see your thoughts, right? I don't have those powers. But like, why does that mean that my thoughts can't be material?
I mean, can you prove to me you love your mom?
Yeah, I think I can demonstrate that. Yeah, for sure.
Like, can you see happiness walking down the street?
Yeah, if somebody has a smile on their face or something, right?
Well, that doesn't mean they're happy, you know.
That's true.
It's
That's
just a
true.
facade.
There's other social indicators, though, right? There's even biological ones too, right? We can look at people's dopamine levels. We can look at people's serotonin levels. We can see if there's a chemical imbalance. It's actually why people. It's why I'm on, and many people are on antidepressants to help with their mood, right? Because like there's a chemical process that happens there. So there's definitely at least a material element to it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're both you know, they're both consubstantial.
Yeah. So if there's definitely a material element to it, like I think it's fair, and it sounds like you agree that there's at least a material element to it. Why should we believe there's a spiritual element to it?
I mean, I feel like well, not I feel, but I mean, it's part of the same coin, like heads or tail. It's like the same coinage. The physical and the metaphysical can't be without.
Why not? I mean, like, look. We have right now, Alex. Right, we have Chat GPT available to us. Right, you talk to that thing. That thing sounds like it's alive. I mean, like you talk to it. It can give you opinions. It can tell you stuff about the world. That's pretty crazy. There's no spirit to that, though, right? Like, I don't think there's a spirit to it. But
There's not.
yeah. So, I mean,
There's
what
not.
if, and I'm just saying, what if humans are kind of the same way? What if maybe there's just no spirit to us either? I mean, is that even possible?
Well, I mean, ChatGPT and all internet, all technology works throughout the ether. So we're like etheric sparks, if you think about it. It's no different.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Etheric sparks.
Well, what I mean by that is, you know, like the ether is everywhere. It's present everywhere. To me, it's undeniable. You know, it's a hard question, really.
Sure.
I went through, but
No, I get it. And you know what? Things could exist too, Alex, right? Like that we may not be able to describe very well, right? Like I think dark matter is a thing. I think if you ask me to describe it, I have no idea what to tell you. It's not my field of study. I wouldn't tell you what it looks like, what it smells like, whatever. But there's a lot of really smart people out there who've done a lot of work who say, yeah, this is a thing that exists, or at least a function. There's a role in it somewhere. So sure, some things could exist and we may not know how to describe they exist. But at least, when a scientist is talking about dark matter, they can look at its relationship to other things that have properties in the universe, right? We can compare other models, we can contrast. In other words, we can kind of verify these ideas. So what I'm curious about is this idea of the spiritual that you've talked about. How can we verify this spiritual idea, that this idea that there's spirituality beyond ourselves? Do you have any ideas?
I don't know if this would answer your question, but like I said at the beginning, you know, the demiurge is the creator of the physical world, right? So everything,
Sure.
and the universe functions in magnetism, right? So everything is magnetism, and when you learn magnetism,
not everything. It's one of the four fundamental forces, but there's at least three other forces, right?
I think there are other ways of describing magnetism, but
Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if I don't know if all physicists would agree with you there on that one, Alex, but I'll give it to you here. So yeah, maybe there's magnetism everywhere, right? But
of course,
going back to the
all the way down to the molecular, you know.
sure, I think anyway. But yeah, so regardless, right? Um, the spirituality thing. How do we understand that to be real and not just our imaginations? Because I think there's a lot of people, for example, right, that say ChatGPT is alive, like is a living thing, like you or me. There's people out there that believe that. I don't believe that it's a
Wow.
living thing like you or me, but how do we demonstrate that? You know, how do we know that we are spiritual beings?
Why do you think that we're not?
Well, I think that we're not, and I'll tell you my opinion. And again, I want to hear Ashley's thoughts on this too, if she agrees with me. I think that we're not because if you took cells of myself back when I was just a zygote, even not even a full person, and you put it in somebody else's body or even put it in an artificial womb, you can make a clone of me. And that's going to be me. Like that's going to have my most if not all of my genetic traits, and it's just going to basically be another version of me. In fact, that's what twins are, right? Twins are just cells that are split and formed together, genetically identical twins, right? Like we recognize there is a material process that happened there that created the beings that are there. So I think I'm a material being because of that. I think from the minute I was conceived, whatever that means, to now was a completely material process. I don't see any room in there for any spiritual things to happen. I mean, it could be, but I just don't know where it would even exist.
Well, like you said, when you were being created, I think it's when you're in the womb. I think after 49 days is the Pentecost, right? When your pineal gland is created, and I think that I call it the heavens, but the celestial objects in the sky. So the day you're born, right, you're stamped with you have like an electromagnetic stamp, and that's what makes your personality. And you're here to develop that. I mean, you're given a vehicle, which is the physical avatar, so you can travel from point A to point B that you need to take care of. But ultimately, I think it's only a vehicle in order for your spirit to operate.
Okay. Well, this took a left turn. We were going down the highway and we just took an exit. I don't know where we're at now, but we got to stop at the gas station and fill up our tank before we go on. Because like, what is happening here? Okay, so the pineal gland after 49 days gives us our personalities. So like, wait, what about animals that don't have a pineal gland? Like other mammals, for
right?
example.
Is there any animals that don't have a pineal gland? I couldn't tell you, probably.
Yeah, I mean, there's animals that don't have a pineal gland for sure. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't, give you a taxonomical, a throwdown of who does and who doesn't.
Well,
but like, I don't even know why do you think the pineal gland gives us our personality?
Well, I mean, can we just change the word? I didn't mean pineal gland. How about central nervous system? I rather that central nerve. Everything has a central nervous system, and I think that's what keeps us jacked into this reality, and that feeds us the information that we're taking in.
Well,
I think personality comes a little bit more from like frontal lobe than your whole central nervous system.
Yeah, we definitely need to be very specific about the wording. Also, there's definitely living organisms that don't have central nervous systems. I don't know if you can describe anything that doesn't have a central nervous system as having a personality. That's debatable, but like still, like if we're switching from pineal gland to central nervous system, I mean, like again, all those things are material. Like I don't know why you think there's a spiritual component to that.
Well, I mean, you're correct. I mean, the central nervous system filters, the information coming in. That's why you have your set of beliefs that, you don't believe in the spiritual, and whatever I say, you filter that information, in your own way. And that's what makes it special, right? We're all here. We're all different. We all have, different fingerprints and all that, but we're all experiencing, we're all like theophanies of divine intelligence, if you want.
I mean, yeah, like you're definitely right? We filter the world through our own biases, through our own preconceived notions, through our cognitive constructions. And I believe that's also like a material process, right? Like I think you also just said like, yeah, that I believe this way because my pineal gland or central nervous system, whatever. I mean, I don't think that's actually how it works, but like something material in me is doing that. Again, I'm just hearing material things. I don't understand where the spiritual part comes in. When does the spiritual part of me light up and say, okay, now I'm a spiritual being rather than just a material one?
Right.
I mean,
well, you were talking about dark matter, right? Or we can say, can we say, I'll say like a black hole, right? What do you think? What do you think a black hole is? Just for fun.
What do I think a black hole is? I am not qualified to answer that question.
Well, I mean, inherently, our bodies, like we experience, whether it be our eyes, right? We have a black hole. We have two black holes right there. Whether it be our nose, our ears, our mouth, all our senses contain holes, right? And so,
wait, what? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. I need to know where this is going. I have no idea what
I don't even know.
Do you know where this is going, Alex? Do you know where you're taking this metaphor?
I mean, you're asking me hard questions. I'm just going
I
along
get you.
here. I'm trying to.
I understand. Listen, don't feel like you have to give an answer, okay? If I give you a question and you're like, I don't know, I have to think about it, that's okay. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, I do that all the time. I do that all the time because I'd rather be right about something than jump to conclusions, right? And say to believe something I don't know.
Though. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing. And I appreciate your willingness to talk to me about your beliefs as well, by the way. It's a very commendable thing to do. Thank you for sharing that. Unfortunately, we are running out of time here, so I do have to kind of cut you off and let you go. But if you want to call in again sometime, yeah, thank you, Alex, for sharing your thoughts and ideas. Because they're definitely unique. Yeah, so I think that's the first. I could be wrong. I think it's the first Christian Gnostic I've ever had the pleasure of speaking to on this show. Actually, that was an interesting call. What did you think?
It was interesting. He was pretty nice. He seems like he's fairly intelligent too.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, if you're willing to talk to folks like us, that's a cool thing. It's a cool trait.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I want to know what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that Alex doesn't know what he's talking about. But if we're switching from using a pineal gland, for example, to a central nervous system, those are two very different things. And if
Yeah.
we're saying this is what this thing does, well, wait a minute, hold on. Do we know that? And do we know and using a black hole is similar to our pupils
My nostrils.
my nostrils because they're also holes? There's a lot of analogy that's doing a lot of work in that. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
Makes
I
me
think,
wonder if he feels comfortable with just saying, I don't know.
yeah. I mean, look, I think it's a bias for us to believe in spirituality, right? I think that's human bias. I think across human cultures, you do see spiritual identities, right? But I don't know if that means it's true, right? Just because a lot of people
Right.
think that. So I don't know. But Ashley, we are kind of running out of time here.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of wrap up the show. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today on this
Thank
excursion.
you.
What did you think about today's show, Ashley? You
I
enjoy
thought
it?
I thought it was a lot of fun.
Good. Would you do it again?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. Well, if people want to find out more about you and what you're up to and where you're at, where should they go?
Well, I am pretty active on my Apostate Ashley Facebook. I have an Instagram, a TikTok, and I also have an Apostate Ashley YouTube channel where basically if you just type in Apostate Ashley in Google, you'll find me everywhere. So those are the main ones. Instagram, YouTube for sure, and TikTok.
Cool. Yeah, definitely check Ashley out on the TikToks. Ashley just posted a TikTok yesterday that she told me got 200,000 views. That's crazy.
Yeah, over 200,000. It was new for me.
That's really cool. I hope I get a TikTok that matches that much. I'm not even on TikTok, but there's clips of me that go there sometimes. So hopefully one of those can do that. Real quickly, I should have read this earlier, but I do have a super chat I need to announce here. We got $5 from Mino, who says, Apostate Ashley, thank you. Could you talk about how you've dealt with the quote hangers on your former belief system, free will, the soul, etc.? I don't know if we have time to go into all of those topics, but yeah, the hangers. I guess they mean the folks that still believe that are in your life. How have you dealt with some of that?
Well, at first, I guess I just didn't deal with it very eloquently at all. You know, I was in my angry atheist stage for a little
Mm,
while, and uh, over time, you know, it's been 9.5 years for me. So over time, I have been able to have some really great conversations with some of the people that were in my belief system from before. And I don't know, when it comes to free will and soul, I'm honestly not really sure how to answer that. You know, I
mm,
guess I definitely don't believe in a soul at all anymore, just like we were talking about a spirit. I
mhm.
just don't think that those are things. But free will, I don't know. That
It's a tricky
Yeah,
one.
I don't really know how to go into details about that quick, I guess, but um with the people in my former belief system, I'm on pretty good terms with quite a few of them now. Some of them I don't have any contact with at all, but time really helps a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. Time for most of my relationships with people who still believe has helped the best. There's some folks who still will probably never talk to me again, and you know what? I've had to make peace with that, because you know if they were real friends, they would stick around. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
what you got
And
to do
sometimes it's
sometimes.
just like people come back around and like
True.
I've said my sorries, they've said their sorries. And there were people that I truly, truly loved from those
Hmm.
days. And I'm really glad that some of them have come back into my life and we can have conversation with each other again.
I've had people, and maybe you've had this experience too, Ashley, who have come out of my life and then come back into my life because they became atheists and they found some of my
Yeah.
stuff online.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's happened with me too.
Yeah,
Where they're like, I
that's
can't
the
tell
wild
anybody,
stuff.
like, oh my gosh, I don't believe I could never tell
Yeah,
my family or the church or
that's the weird stuff. Yeah, those are
yeah,
really fun conversations.
they
But yeah,
are.
and folks at home, if you're going through this and this is a recent thing for you, it does get better, and you'll have some of those conversations for yourself too, where you're gonna figure out, oh,
Definitely.
this other person actually also doesn't believe anymore. I almost guarantee it. It will probably happen.
First few
Real
years are tough.
The first few years are the toughest though. Definitely, 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 definitely. Well, thank you so much again for being on the show today. And last but never ever least, I have to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, stupendous crew that helped make this show happen every single week. Look at all the people helping
Thank
us today. A lot
you.
of folks behind the scenes, felines included. Thank you guys so much for everything that you do. And thank you to everybody at home who, whether if you donate or don't donate, the fact that you watch this show, that means a lot. And so thank you so much for supporting it in whatever way you can. Please like, subscribe, comment, and make sure that you remember our question this week, which is complete the sentence. While the cause of migraines is unknown, I suspect it's blank. And leave your comment below, and maybe we'll get read next week for the we'll get it read next week for the We Want the Truth segment. But for now, that is going to be it tonight, folks. I am Objectively Dan. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, between the Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/ytnp.